The most fateful moment in 1532 began when Atahualpa, the last unconquered Sapa Inca, rode into the market plaza of Cajamarca expecting a parley and walked straight into a trap. November 16, 1532 is a date written in two tongues. In Quechua, it was the day of negotiation. In Castilian, it would be the day an empire met its ransom. Francisco Pizarro and some 168 Spaniards, a handful of mounted men and arquebusiers hardened by campaigns in the Caribbean and Panama, had come with a deliberate cruelty masked as protocol. The Inca entourage numbered in the thousands, unarmored, bearing gifts and carrying its sovereign on a litter of feather and gold. The Spaniards had no intention of a fair exchange. They had plotted together, conquistadors and clerics, to seize the crown and the treasury that backed it. A friar, Vicente de Valverde, stepped forward with a Bible and a prescriptive calm. When he told Atahualpa that the king must accept the Christian God or face consequences, the Inca's impatient toss of the book was turned by the Spaniards into sacrilege. That slight became legal justification for violence. In a heartbeat, the plaza erupted. Horses reared, steel flashed, and gunfire cracked through the Andean air. The massacre that followed was not a battlefield, but an act of judicial theater. The ambush was engineered to create a pretext and a spectacle of divine right. They took Atahualpa alive. Confined in a small, shadowed house, he watched the world outside convulse while men measured his fate in bullion. He promised them a ransom, the famous vow to fill an enclosed chamber to the ceiling with gold, and twice more with silver. Caravans were dispatched across the Andes. Villages were stripped of sacred objects, melted, and turned into portable wealth. For months, the Spaniards poured this treasure into rooms and chests, counting metal that represented centuries of ritual and authority. But the conspiracy ran deeper than greed alone. Pizarro and his captains feared the unity of an empire, even without its ruler. They feared the army that could form under a free Atahualpa. The trial they staged, an improvised council of clerics and captains, was a mockery of law. Charges of idolatry and fratricide, a sentence passed by men who arrived with swords already drawn. When Atahualpa accepted baptism to avoid burning, the sentence changed to strangulation. An execution carried out in August 1533 that extinguished a life and an idea of legitimacy. The horror did not end with one body. The capture and killing of Atahualpa unmoored the Inca state. Without its sacral hinge, the empire splintered into faction and flight, allowing the Spaniards to march on Cusco months later. Disease, smallpox, arriving earlier and spreading in the wake of contact, did more silent work. Whole communities were hollowed out, elders and knowledge lost. What followed was a programmatic dismantling. Temples sacked, mummies unceremoniously burned or melted for silver, labor systems imposed under encomienda and mita. The ransom of Cajamarca was not a singular atrocity, but the opening of a machinery. To read the official records is to see how violence was dressed as providence. The conquistadors wrote legal briefs and letters to the crown. The friars supplied moral cover. Gold crossed the ocean in gilt caravans that made Madrid and Seville richer and the Andes poorer. That confluence, religious authority, military opportunism, and voracious commerce was the true conspiracy. A coordinated set of choices that turned an ambush into empire. Centuries later, the plaza at Cajamarca is a place of stones and memory. The gold is gone, the names survive. The terror is not merely the slaughter, but the calculated exchange of bodies for bullion and the bureaucratic language that made it acceptable. The story of Atahualpa's ransom is a true-life horror, an act of perfidy whose echoes reshaped a continent where ritual and betrayal met and where the price of a crown was paid in lives and the slow erasure of a civilization.